Hello and welcome to the Big Ideas Show. I'm Liu Batchelor and today I'm joined by Tom Dixon from the Folkestone School for Girls. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me today.
That's all right, thanks for having us.
And I think I'm going to have to leave it to you to tell us what your role is, because it's a very long title, isn't it? And what you do at the Girls' School.
Yeah, and it is a mouthful, so I can understand why you left that to me. I'm not even sure myself, to be honest. But basically I run one-to-one emotional health sessions and I kind of run adventure education sessions within the school as well.
Okay, that sounds absolutely awesome. Going to hear more about that after these titles. Thank you for joining us here on the Big Ideas Show. And in today's episode, we're going to be exploring and spotlighting really some of those local organisations who are doing things a little bit differently and in this case rather excitingly. I want to say a big thank you first off to the people that help make this show possible, to all our contributors who you'll see in the credits, and to our sponsors, the Glass Whiteboard Company and the Grand in Folkestone, for being our lovely hosts. But we're going to move on to the interview with Tom. So the Folkestone School for Girls are taking a rather adventurous approach, excuse the pun, to student kind of well-being and ultimately success, right? But tell us a little bit more, kind of what is it you actually do?
So on a day-to-day basis, my job is kind of the emotional health side of things.
Yeah.
So I run one-to-one sessions with some of the kids that have more, maybe more specific needs. Mm-hmm. And then as a whole, we're kind of targeting sort of the younger years at the moment and allowing them to take part in like mountain biking, rock climbing, archery and bushcraft, in hope that it kind of teaches them some of the skills like resilience, social skills, and just the ability to switch off and have fun for a little while.
Okay, yeah.
So we're using those activities to kind of help do that, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely, and it sounds absolutely awesome, and I'm totally with you there in terms of the action sports and everything, but can you tell me a little bit more about kind of how does that benefit them, because they're doing it in school time, right, a lot of the time,
yes,
is that right?
Yeah.
How does that benefit them in terms of their studies and kind of maybe more of the other more serious stuff that people think about going to school for?
Yeah, so with Mark Lester, our new head, he's actually made it so it's going to be part of our curriculum that they actually take part in these things. So it's not just an add-on that they do after school or at lunchtime. Those options are there, but it's to kind of address everybody.
Yeah.
And I think what I see on a day-to-day basis, especially my one-to-one sessions, is actually they get so worked up, you know, and then they're just flat out the whole time. They get home, they study, they wake up, they study before they get to school, and they're kind of losing that ability to just be a kid and have a bit of fun sometimes. And it's getting to see that actually if you're in a better state of mind, it's going to have an effect on how you actually study and revise. So instead of doing 6 hours of solid revision, you know, you go and have a bit of fun, you do something adventurous, you mingle with people, you challenge yourself, and then actually when you spend an hour or two revising, that's more productive than 6 hours of, oh, I've got to do this, or this has got to be done, kind of thing. So it's that ability to switch off and how actually it has a knock-on effect.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the key, I guess, things that you see that they get from it, the kind of key learnings, or maybe it's more of a mindset that are kind of the most prevalent that you see?
I think the thing I'm most see is at the end, you know, I always do like a bit of a Q&A with them. It's like, okay, who's challenged themselves today? And all the hands go up. Who's done something they didn't think they could? All the hands go up. Who's been scared? All the hands go up. Yeah. And then it's getting them to sort of relate that to their everyday life. So, you know, who's got a lesson that they find really difficult that scares them, and then they kind of put two and two together. And actually, granted, mountain biking can be more fun than you know, sitting in a classroom sometimes, but the skills are the same. Yeah. You know, so it's that ability to take one thing and apply it to another in their sort of everyday lives. Yeah. And I think socially as well, you know, when they all come, the idea of putting on a cycle helmet, you know, and mucking up their hair is like, oh, how am I going to cope for the rest of the day? But that soon goes out the window, you know, when they're all playing the games on the bikes and they're talking to each other and they're all talking about the jump that they've just done and how they got up the wall and fired an arrow. I had one girl that came in and she was quite quiet and stuff, and I remember like I'd done the demonstrations and then she hit 3 bullseyes on the archery range, and I was like,
hidden talent there.
Yeah, and I could see her like smirking. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like that's so cool, and it just gives it like a talking point. Like it's not, their everyday subjects and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And how important do you find, because I guess you could say, some people are lucky enough to go out and do various things generally in their free time, but how important do you think is the talking about it and relating? You mentioned that you say, well, who did achieve this today, or who learned to fail or whatever, and then relating it to their schoolwork. Do they naturally relate it across, or is that something that is quite an important part, a piece of the puzzle?
I think that's quite an important part, because otherwise it's just, oh yeah, do you remember that time we had a bit of fun?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, some of the lessons go sort of without words, essentially, when they discover they can do something new themselves, and then you can kind of see it sometimes, but you always have that sort of conversation afterwards to then make, the links and stuff, and then sometimes you get the, oh yeah, moments. And I was certainly the same. When I first started looking into it, it's kind of the same for me as well.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you come to do this? It's an unusual role. What was your journey, I guess, to get there and then to have this role that you've now got, which, it sounds very unique.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful for it as well. I kind of wanted to get into mental health because my younger cousin has had a bit of a tough time. He's losing his sight, and he's, but now he's had some support, more so recently as well. And, we went around Europe together when he just had a little bit of sight left, and, none of the activities were too much, I think I just said yes to them all, and then sort of worried about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And I remember when he was riding a bike in front of me, and I was just saying to him, like, oh, go right, go left. And the two of us had so much fun, and that idea of doing something that, probably mildly daft to be fair, to some people was like, no way, but actually it's kind of good when you live life on the edge as well and get that buzz. And again, that then links to, some of the anxieties they have about exams and things like that. It's the same, I'm going to try this. It's not always a bad thing. Yeah,
I guess a lot of the time the emotion that we feel when we get anxious is the same if we're doing something genuinely dangerous, like riding a bike through trees, versus doing an exam. The kind of sometimes the feelings in our gut are the same, aren't they? And it's learning to deal with it.
It's that fight or flight.
Yeah.
So I got into mental health, and then I got into a role, and I was actually given an amazing opportunity at the Folkestone School for Girls by the ex-head teacher. And then I was studying counselling at the same time, and I got to my level 3, so I'm not a fully qualified counsellor at the moment, but I've done a lot of the counselling skills. And I remember as I was learning, you have, part of it is trying to get people into good, healthy habits and routines with their everyday lives, and I was just thinking, there must be a way that I can combine this with, doing the healthy things. And I met
rather than just talking about it, I guess.
Yeah. And I met a fella called Andrew Fry-Kelsey, who was an ecotherapist for the NHS at the time. And I remember phoning him and being like, I'm so interested in what you do. Can I come and supervise a session or watch? And he was like, no. I was like, oh. He was like, but if you want, I'll do a session like on you or with you. And I was like, yeah, all right.
Sounds good.
And I never forget, I went to a clinic in Ashford, and I didn't really know what to expect, but it was like a very normal sort of doctor's surgery with this massive Land Rover parked out like on the bank, and I just thought, I bet that's his.
Yeah.
And I went in there, and there was just like, loads of receptionists and a big hairy man that smelled of bonfire in the corner, and I was like, you must be Andrew. He's like, you must be Tom.
Yeah.
And then we went out and we built like camps and fires, and it was, I knew what to expect, but I still ended up sort of having quite in-depth conversations with him, and it wasn't until afterwards I was like, oh wow, like, and then it just ticked that box for me, and I was like, this is what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I started upskilling, so I've got my mountain bike instructors awards, my climbing instructors, archeries and bushcraft. And it started just with the bushcraft in the school, and then that was like an add-on what I was doing, because I was the SDL for year 9. And then when Mark Lester took over the role, there was a sort of a vacancy for the emotional wellbeing leader.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, I had this like, idea, and I was like, right, I planned it out. I was like, go and speak to Mark and Tracy, and like maybe I could combine the two. And I went in and I was like, ooh. And they was like, I'd like to talk to you about a job opportunity we've got. And I was like, and it was the same thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, myself and Mark, actually, our visions are very similar.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And then that's how I fell into the role that I've got today.
Amazing. I love it. And it kind of, the way you're describing it and all the stuff you're doing, it kind of makes so much sense. It seems so obvious to hear you talking about it and forming those connections between you do this and just that simple piece in between. But it's not being done, and I imagine the girls' school must be quite unique in offering that. So it's really exciting to hear. We're going to take a little bit of a break now, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, I guess, that bigger picture of well-being, mindfulness, and how maybe ideas that other people can apply to themselves or wherever they may be. So we'll chat about that after this little break. You are joining us here on the Big Idea Show, and I'm still here with Tom DIXON from the Folkestone School for Girls. And I went to the girls' school, and I must say, if they'd had that when I was there, I was lucky enough that I had the opportunities outside with family, but I've got so much value from it, and being able to do it in school would have been absolutely incredible. And it's that missing piece of linking it, like how does this apply to your schoolwork, that sounds like it's really important. But I want to kind of maybe discuss in a little bit more of a broad sense this idea of a different approach, really, it sounds like, to mindfulness. You mentioned about the counselling, mental health. A lot of the stuff we hear is mindfulness, right? You've got to be still and take time out and do nothing and be zen and all this kind of stuff. But this kind of goes very counter to it. What's your kind of approach or outlook on this balance between stillness and adventure?
I don't know, for me, mindfulness was always kind of focusing your mind on something and having the ability to actually forget the worries or the things that we're worried about and the workload that we've got sat waiting for us, sort of thing. And it's that ability to kind of switch off and just think, and a lot of the mindfulness that's taught is about, focusing on little things like drinking your water or everything that goes into that, which is great. But I know personally for me, if I was to sit and think about, the little things, doing the washing up, my mind's too fast sometimes. But when I'm out on my bike, I'm just thinking about riding and I'm just enjoying it. And you're talking to people about what you've just done, and then you just think, actually, I've done like 6 hours of forgetting things that I'm worried about. So I think people are different at the same time, though. Some people can really kind of hone into that and really switch off, and stillness is that ability for them. For me personally, it's not. It's about doing something fun, because it attaches lots of other emotions as well, like pride when you finally do that trick that you've been trying all day. Resilience when you sort of been doing it all day. And so that's kind of my take on it.
Definitely. And I definitely relate to that idea of being able to, and kind of almost, especially with extreme sports, do something that you have to focus, because if you don't, there's a risk of serious injury, right? So there's nothing like that to keep you really, really focused. So what would you say, I guess, you said it all depends on the individual, doesn't it? And but for people maybe who know they want to be doing something a little bit more, what would you recommend they try? Like, they've tried one, how do they get into it, or where's the balance?
Yes, it's a tough question. Like, I think the thing with the adventure sports is when you're sat in a room with other people and you're told to be still, and you have to kind of shut your eyes and all that. That's the idea of hell for some of these kids, and you can see it. I've personally run sessions where I've done that before, and I've had kids pull out because they don't want to do like the meditation style mindfulness stuff. So that, they've then been worrying about that for a week, and then they pull out, so they miss a session, and has sort of knock-on effects. Whereas when you say to a bunch of kids, do you know what, do you want to come out on a mountain bike, or do you want to go and shoot some bows and arrows for a little while? That's not even a thought. It's like, oh they're doing something fun. But it's that same thing. So personally, it's just about making that decision. Okay, if you want a change, and that's a conscious decision you've got to make to change, even if it is just going for a ride or going out for a run or going for a walk in the countryside. And all of those things that, especially in Folkestone, are so accessible. It's right on our doorstep if you want it. And
what would you say about the balance between, in the same way as some people struggle to be still, But at the same time, likewise, we've got to kind of show both sides. Some people will struggle to go out and do the active stuff and would rather do the stillness. So kind of there's something for everyone. But what about the level of the talking about it afterwards? Because again, some people don't always feel comfortable expressing some of those deeper emotions or things that are really going on for them. What would you say is the balance for that?
I think everybody's got a limit. They can only kind of keep stuff bottled up for so long. And I found personally, and I've seen that if you bottle something up, you might be fine for a couple of weeks, months, years even.
Yeah.
But it's got a funny way of sort of resurfacing, and it's quite often when you don't want it to resurface at all that it kind of comes back and bites you. So I just say any opportunity, talk about the things that are worrying you, but don't take it too far so it's all you talk about.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to know, okay, I'm going to sit and talk about this for a little while and then be doing the things that are helpful for me, whatever that may be, whether it be going out socialising with friends, having a bit of alone time sort of thing, going out on your bike. So yeah, and be careful who you sort of tell those things to as well. And I see it all the time in a school where somebody's trusted somebody else and then they've told X, Y and Z and then that's a whole entirely new problem. So I'd always urge to really think about the relationship you've got in your life and think, okay, which ones do I actually really trust with maybe that information that's quite difficult.
Yeah, and how do a lot of the girls and kind of young people in general, I guess they're probably still finding that out a lot of the time, aren't they? That they may think someone can be, they trust a friend, but then maybe things kind of go sour, I guess. That adds to the concern a lot of the time, doesn't it? How do you kind of support, or what do you advise them in terms of finding those people that they can talk to?
It's a hard thing to find because I don't know any of these people, you know, and you always think you know somebody and you may very well do, but sometimes it is trial and error as well. You know, it's about thinking, okay, here's little bits of information, seeing where it travels. But a big part is actually thinking about them. So some of the work I do is we write all the sort of relationships that are in their life that they kind of can't avoid, good and bad, and then just say, okay, which ones would you put over here that you'd tell anything to? Okay. And then they can't, and then they think about it, and then it's like, okay, but who have you been saying it to? And it's all these people. And and then they're like, well, I've been doing that. So quite often it's automatic what we do, but it's not until we stop and think about these things that we then actually think, oh God, you know, what I've been doing is. Well, it's like, shoot myself in the foot, really. Yeah, and I guess it's easy to take the blanket approach, which is, oh, we need to talk to people more, we need to open up, all this kind of thing. But like you said, you've got to also take that time to think beforehand about who you feel comfortable sharing it with. A more kind of holistic approach to the whole thing, really, isn't it? Okay, good stuff. So I'm going to ask you now, what would be your one tip then, from everything you've got so far? Hard question, I know. It is a hard question. From everything you've kind of learnt, both personally and what you've seen and experienced and the support you've been able to give them, the first step that you think, particularly for young people, is something that they can take on, maybe someone who's listening, or you know, their kind of child or friend doesn't go to the girls' school but wants to maybe take on some of the ideas that we've talked about tonight? I think always think about that person or people that you trust and actually have a chat. You know, it doesn't have to be too in-depth. It can be as in-depth as you want it to be. You can always start small and then really sort of talk about some of the things that your worries. And no worries too small. Okay, that's a really nice one. Quite often people say, oh, well, I'm worrying about this when they've got X, Y and Z. But we're all different. We all see life very differently as well. So what you might find horrendously stressful, I might think, what are you worrying about? Or what, you know, vice versa. What I find stressful, you might deal with easily. So try not to compare yourself to other people as well. Okay. And then I would say, get outdoors and do something fun, regardless of what it is. Even if it's scary, you find after the first couple of times doing it, you get into the habit and then there's a lot of good benefits from it. Definitely, I really like that. You ended up with 2 tips there. It was good, I like it. And that's a really great one about starting small, not just in the activity that you do, but in talking about your problems. Keep it simple. Really nice, I like it. Thank you. Right. And if people want to find out more about the work that you're doing at the girls' school, but also kind of, I guess, in general, anywhere you'd send them, where can they find out? I know the head teacher has got like it's like a program. It's called the FSG Back. So you've got the e-back system, but the FSG Back is, and it's not just the adventure activities we do. We've got like the school radio coming in, like big show production where dance, drama and music all work together. There's loads of bits, and I know that program's on our website.
Okay, brilliant. So they can find it at Folkestone School for Girls. They'll find information there. Brilliant. Tom, it's been absolutely wonderful.
Thanks for
I
having
am
me.
very jealous of your job. It sounds absolutely amazing. But thank you for coming and sharing.
Cheers.
And thank you out there for tuning in to the Big Ideas Show for this episode with Tom. And if you are doing something really great, or you know someone who's doing something great in a local community project, in a local organisation, school, it could be anything, then please get in touch, as we'd love to hear about what they're up to and maybe get them in this hot seat right here. You can find us on the Big Ideas Show on all of the social media channels. And the only final thing for me to say is a big thank you to you out there for listening, to our audience who are in attendance at this event tonight, and to the Grand in Folkestone for being our wonderful hosts, to our sponsors, the Glass Whiteboard Company, and to everyone who has contributed. We have our crew who are Hannah, Maddie and Gary, and we have our contributors who are Hax from Prisma Broadcast, Aaron from 6-2 and Warren from Flourish. So massive thank you to them all. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.